Thank you all for being here. I'm really delighted to have all of you. A quick introduction. I'm Pankaj. I'm the founder of Impactus. Impactus is a technology platform that is looking at making scholarship creation and, more importantly, matching these scholarships to deserving students. And when we talk about deserving students, we're not just talking about their academic achievements, we're also talking about their background, their developmental needs, and being able to support them in their success that goes beyond financing. So we're looking at building a technology platform that sort of gets these various influencers, whether you're a financer of a scholarship, whether you're a program manager of a scholarship, whether you're the student itself, how do we bring you all together so that we can actually have better outcomes and then monitor and measure those outcomes. So that's what our technology is aimed at. And we know that there's a very big opportunity to make sure that more Indian youth have access to better education, and each of us can play a part in that. And that's really what drives Impactus. EdTalks is a series where we get in people who have far greater insights on what is the lay of the land today, what are the challenges being faced by students, by education providers, by scholarship providers, and program managers alike. And one thing we all know is that the way we are running scholarships today, that's broken. That's not working very well. We can really do much more. It's the need of the hour. We've got a young country. Unemployment rate is at 8% at a time when the country's youth demographic dividend is on a spike. And the purpose of these calls really is to get a better understanding on what can be done to make scholarships more effective. And in that context, I'm extremely delighted and pleased to have Manish. Manish is the founder of Youth Dreamers Foundation. I have known Manish for more than a year now, and I can personally say that I've been not only personally moved and inspired by his work, but also I do believe that he's doing some very important work and really taking it ground up. So without further ado, Manish, welcome. It's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Yeah.
Great. And I'd like to start with maybe, just you telling us more about yourself. And I'd like to, let's say, start from the start,
Right.
Tell us more about how one thing that always fascinates me in the social sector. I myself have been a technologist and a banker. Yeah. One thing that always fascinates me, are the stories behind what drives people to come into the CSR area. And, someone who's founded an NGO, you could have been doing many other things. You're an engineer by training. You had got a job at TCS. So talk to us about your journey, your background, what got you started. That'll be great to know.
Sure. Thank you, Pankaj. And hello, everyone. It is lovely talking to you about scholarships, which is a passion project for me. So Pankaj, really, I grew up in Bhopal. My family was one of the families in my extended family who went out of village and when they came to Bhopal and provided us with the education that we had. I did engineering, then went to TCS, worked for a couple of years. Then I was not very happy with that job, so I shifted, embarked on a train journey called Jagrati Yatra, where I found a lot of exposure about what entrepreneurship is, social sector leaders and business leaders. And that was a turning point in my journey. That is when I got inspired to work in the education sector in rural Rajasthan, where I was working with 5 government schools, helping them get better at improving student learning outcomes. Did that job, then worked for a non-profit called Cavalier Education Foundation for 2 years, where I was helping a CEO to manage the organization by preparing the strategies and program management tools and frameworks there. And accidentally, then I met my friend who also was a colleague in rural Rajasthan. And he shared his story. Probably I was inspired by his struggles all through his life. He went on to study till MBA or masters through scholarships. And I also got thinking about this कि मतलब ना my trajectory is different because of higher education. All my first cousins are मतलब ना basically doing farming, and I could get that higher education training, and my trajectory changed because my father could afford it. He had the will and mindset and finances to afford my higher education. And as I went ahead, I could see a stark difference in the lifestyles of me and my cousins. And I knew the transformative potential of higher education is immense. And that is when me and Saurabh, my colleague, we both banded together and started this organization called Youth Dreamers Foundation. We thought that a lot of people who want to study and have the aptitude to study further get behind because they do not have access to funds. So that was the genesis of this idea, and we have been working for last 5-6 years on the ground of and helping a lot of students to get scholarships, both public and private. And we have helped around 18,000 students to get scholarships worth rupees 12-13 crores. So yeah, that has been our journey so far.
That's amazing, Manish. And I think, I'm going to ask you this question because I'm going to loop back into that question after some time. When you've already got a better education than your immediate family, and you could have been doing different things, right? I mean, you could have been in the IT sector, or you could have been in a proper for-profit sector. You told us a bit about why you came down into higher education and scholarships, but what is the main thing that drove you to take this path? I mean, of course, you could have always taken another job. Why did you come into the social sector instead?
So I used to visit my village in my summer vacations, and I used to play marbles with the kids around there. And there was a guy called Pankaj, your namesake, and we used to play marbles, and I could see he had only one button shirt, and I have been seeing that guy constantly for 3-4 years. And luckily, I have witnessed his journey all through life. He didn't have the roof on his head when he was in that village, and when he cleared 10th, my grand uncle gave some money to him to study further, and now courtesy his grit and resilience, he went on to study in college, and then now he is working as a sales operations manager in a district called Ujjain, and owns land and a house there, and has a car. And I am very fascinated by his journey, and that is where I got the idea. The higher education has a lot of potential to change lives of students. So he had been my inspiration to think about it.
That's very interesting because people think differently about their own journeys, and we'll probably loop back into it. But let's get to the main topic today. So scholarships are broken today. I mean, I think we are all feeling it in some measure. That's why people are here on the call as well in this session. Manish, I'd like to start with your perspective. You started Youth Dreamers Foundation, in
2017? Yeah.
In 2017, you've been at it. You work with the governments of Bihar, with governments of Maharashtra. You work with private companies. You've supported CSR programs, and you're also doing your own independent programs. You work with schools extensively, students in secondary, senior secondary. Talk to us about scholarships and what are the main challenges that we are facing right now, and the things that need to be solved if we are to make a big impact for higher education.
So yeah, so in scholarships, there are two parts to it. One is there are scholarship seekers and there are scholarship sponsors who give scholarships to needy students. And I think right now how scholarships are managed in India is through various tech portals. There are a lot of tech portals which help scholarship sponsors to find out students. And we are a poor country, and if you think of it, there are very less number of internet users in India. If you imagine, let's say in case of West Bengal, only 15% female students use internet, and the rest of the 85% do not use, and they are not they do not get exposed to all these opportunities that are there for them to, let's say, go into a better college or gain access to tertiary higher education. So I think a lot of things that happens on social media doesn't translate into a good quality of or reaches to a deserving student. So that is one part of it. The student sourcing is broken. Second is a lot of scholarship sponsors also do not have the wherewithal to reach out to these kind of students in a cost-effective manner, because to find out a student in a rural area is a challenge. So we thought that when we started in Bihar, we thought that we will work on the demand side of it, as in to identify the students who are needy, and a scholarship can potentially change their lives. So that was our aim of starting the scholarship. So we painstakingly built a ground network of 500 non-profits across India, and now we are in the cups of partnership with aspirational districts. So aspirational districts are one of the most backward districts of India. There are 112 districts in India which are very poor on social indicators. So we are partnering with them to have our on-ground network there and identify students from that those parts of the country. I think finding right student to give scholarships is the most important piece of this puzzle.
Got it. So you touched on a lot of things. I think if I sort of break it down, so the first part is you talked about reach.
Yeah.
And I think the point that you're making is that when it comes to India, there's a big imbalance. You may say that a lot of the youth may not necessarily have frequent digital access, although that is changing. That is very good. We know that it is changing, but like you said, that especially in the aspirational districts, which is the poorest of the poor districts, where probably we need to make sure that equity is accelerated and access to opportunities is accelerated. There, a lot of the students do not necessarily have access to good technology, and that means that if people are running their CSR programs with, primarily depending on digital marketing-led sourcing, they may not be really effectively reaching out to the students who are making that difference. But you've got a big network now, close to 500 non-profits. I know that you have worked closely with even programs like ONGC, CSR Super 30, with partners like Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Tapas, and others. When you work with them and when you source students, how is that different from, let's say, finding a student on a digital channel? Tell us about where do you find these students? What is the typical geographic, economic profile of the students you work with in such a case?
Right. So all these partners, let's say ONGC Super 30 or Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, one of the major challenges in scholarships is also about the authenticity of that child, right? Most of the people on social media may or may not be genuine students who need scholarships. So the trust in scholarship ecosystem is so low. So that becomes an inhibiting factor for most of the scholarship providers to actually scale or provide scholarships. I think have these kind of partners, you can actually verify much more in a much more better way. The verifiability and checking the genuineness of these students is quite comparatively easy in these cases. So, and these have there are genuine network is all around the country. country. There are more than 450 Jawan Navodaya Vidyalayas, and these are all rural students who are in need of scholarships, because in the first place they are in the JNV because they couldn't afford a good private education. That makes our job much more easier to find the right candidate. So having that network helps.
All right. So what you're saying is basically the fact that there are a lot of ground NGOs and programs already that are working in specialized pockets, like maybe in a Super 30, or even pan-India programs like JNVs and others. So what you've started doing, and what I find very interesting about YDF's work is that you're almost becoming a network in a way of connecting all these different NGOs, and the confidence that you are bringing into the ecosystem is that because you are working with NGOs who in turn have been working with students for a longer period of time, more than a year. Yeah. In the case of JNV, it could be even up to 6-7 years they have been working. So when you find a student for a scholarship, unlike a student who is, let's say, sourced through a digital social media method, you actually know much more about the student's history, and you're actually working with somebody trustworthy who can verify the background. So that is the main thing that you're sort of doing, and in terms of building a network. And the second part is that these not-for-profit partners, these 500 not-for-profit partners that you've got a network of, how are they working in the aspirational districts? Because the other part that you were mentioning was still that people from the social media may not necessarily be coming from the households and the geographic locations which probably need the access. So how is the quality of that network? Talk to us about that.
So we formed this network while we were in that COVID wala zone, where we were helping these hyper-local NGOs to reach out to community, and they have a very strong presence in their community, and they know they provide quite a great recommendations of students in their vicinity who have 2-3 things. One is their background should be such that they should be they are needy in the first place. Their motivation to contribute back to society should be there, and the third thing is the potential of these students should be there to, let's say, actually do something with their life. So all these three things, I guess the ground partners who meet these students on a daily basis, they have a better understanding of that. So we work with these are empaneled on our backend channel. We reach out to these non-profits with certain criteria that we have this scholarship open for them. If you have certain candidates, you please recommend it to us. And through that, and they, because they have been working with these students on the ground, so they provide us with the profiles and help us in applying for those. And they also help in, let's say, the documentation part of it. Most of these students haven't had their income certificate made prior to this kind of thing. Nor a caste certificate. So most of these documentation is taken care by these on-ground partners. So that is where these partners help.
Got it. So thanks Manish. I think to our question, why do we think scholarships are broken, you sort of talked about a few elements. The first one that we've just talked about was reach, and you highlighted that there is definitely potential to reach out to more deserving students in rural areas where maybe social media and technology might not be the best way to have the first conversation to find that promising student. But surely after some time there has to be a role of technology, right? I mean, because if you're talking about 500 network partners and you have to distribute this. So talk to us about what is the state of maturity of technology in the sector, and what role can technology play in helping more CSRs create scholarships that will reach the right students?
So I guess technology plays, if you want to scale scholarships as a concept, technology is imminent. You can't do it without technology. If you have to, let's say, source and applications, solicit applications to the tune of thousands or let's say hundreds of thousands, you can't do it without having a technology infrastructure at place. Second thing is a lot of scholarship sponsors, if they have to run a scholarship scheme, they would want some structured mechanism to actually get inspired to donate this. And technology plays a very good role in building that trust, because there is a lot of transparency that technology brings in. Because all the offline things, there is no transparency as such. Technology element brings in the transparency, the trust. It keeps the cost of these cost of managing a scholarship pretty low. So any scholarship sponsor who wants to donate would want that a large chunk of his money goes into students benefit, right? So technology helps in that. Yeah.
So you're basically talking about technology on two angles then, right? So let me call them out. So the first angle that you're talking about is technology can actually bring down the cost of managing the process of student verification and managing the process of student selection. So we understand that to operate at the scale that India demands, we need to have a better relationship with technology, the social sector solution technology. And the second part that you talked about was costs and trust, right? So that's interesting as well. So you mentioned about technology actually helping build trust as well, especially among scholarship creators. Now that's quite interesting, because in this conversation we were talking about scholarship creation for CSRs, right? They are the CSRs who are creating scholarships for their business, for their social goals. But you're talking about crowdfunding using technology and using that also as a way to build trust. Now, what's the advantage of actually having one technology platform where scholarship creators who are corporates, their scholarships are being co-hosted or they are being hosted obviously as a separate corporate scholarship, but you're also creating a place for NGOs and others, even individuals, to start creating their own scholarships create their and fund it. And what you're saying is that the trust comes because now more scholarship creators can actually see what they are doing on the same platform. So that knowledge sharing is also a builder of trust in a way, you're saying.
Right.
And the second part you said was that trust also means that your ability to raise funds for scholarships improves. So even when a CSR creates a scholarship on a platform, not only are they creating more assurance for their student selection process, they're also creating more trust in the ecosystem. And that will even encourage individuals to start creating scholarships on the platform. So that's actually something which we also believe is very important, because I think in India, individual philanthropy for scholarships, is that very organized? Is that big? How is it done today?
So there are very few individual philanthropic mindset people. A lot of people do charity. In a sense, they'll do a short-term, one-time charity in a sense, and that is not sustainable, let's say. So most of the people do it that way, and they'll give it to a random non-profit in their vicinity, or to a person, or do tree plantation or donate books, but there is no long-term vision to how it is changing the lives of the beneficiaries that way.
And this is the time for us to think about doing these things in a more organized way, because the population of demographic dividend.
One of the things is, if you let's say if you can do a multi-year scholarship programs where you can come up, you can help a certain number of people do better in life through education, higher education, that will have a much more tangible impact on the growth of the country, because they'll get into gainful employment and have that and propel their family out of poverty or whatever socio-economic status they have. Yeah, that is one part of it, I guess. Sorry, I forgot the question.
On trust. So we were talking about how getting organizations together onto one platform can also be a builder of trust for the whole ecosystem, and how can that trust help more individuals to start considering making scholarships?
So I'll tell you one anecdote for that. When we started working in Bihar, we worked with one scholarship provider, in which we helped 400 people to make an application for that thing. And we helped students from other parts of the country to also apply for the similar scholarships. And those were offline applications that were happening. And they didn't consider any student from Bihar because the trust was not there. They thought that the students from the Bihar are not trustworthy because there is a lot of cheating that happens in this ecosystem. And we took a considerable amount of time when while working, like the work we do in Small Town Big Dreams. Now a lot of applications come from Bihar, and people can see it on the platform and see their profiles, what they are speaking. There are video interviews that are there, which they can see and probably judge on their own if that candidate is genuine or not, or probably talk to the NGO partners who are recommending those students. So I guess that all things can be facilitated through technology, and technology like Impact is facilitating that, and that helps bring more trust in the ecosystem. So that helps. Trust begets trust, and that is how the cycle starts.
That's the multiplier. So okay, so one is CSRs who are considering why they should use their funds for scholarships. So one obvious question also comes is that, okay, maybe it's hard to find good students. So you've talked a lot about how your network is helping find good students. You talked about various things like reach, cost, trust, and the role of technology within creating good reach. Let me change gears on another problem that a lot of CSRs face, and those in the audience here, I will encourage you, if you have any questions on, if you're already thinking about putting a scholarship up, or if you have a scholarship and you're not very satisfied with it, or you believe that you have certain questions from your experience, please do send it in the chat. The chat is open. So we'll be happy to take your questions, and I will leave about 10 minutes. So we have another half an hour. I'll keep about 10-15 minutes for the questions, but if you have questions, please keep sending them in the chat box itself, and we'll keep taking them up. So Manish, you talked about reach. Let's talk about another thing. A lot of CSRs are at a conflict that even within the education sector, and education within it, within the CSR sector and education within it, there is so much to be done in primary education. There is so much to be done in livelihoods, right? And many CSRs also wonder whether higher education initiatives can even give them the kind of, they can meet their goals, of reporting in terms of the impact or the scale of numbers affected. So what has been your experience there, and what are the things that these are common questions that CSR people have, when thinking about allocating their their outlays. What's your learning and insights there? Why should someone who's already working in the education sector in other areas consider a higher education scholarship?
Right. So scale is also about how you scale your impact. Scale should be about scaling your impact, right? It is not the number of units or beneficiaries or anything like that, right? If you consider scale as scaling impact, I would argue that if you let's say work in primary education, or if that doesn't translate into tertiary education, it has no effect on growth of the country. There are numerous reports, and I would like to cite one that says that even if you decrease the illiteracy rate by 13%, the effect on it will be equivalent to let's say 1% change in higher education on country's growth. So if you think it in a way, 13 times you'll get 13 times much more impact if you do, let's say, X amount of work in higher education than if you, let's say, work in primary education. That is one way to think about it. Second is, in higher education, the impacts are much more tangible. There is a much shorter period of time where you can see the benefits of how scholarships are given, right? If you, let's say, if you give scholarships to a 12th pass student, you might see its impact in 3 to 5 years ka time frame, because when he or she passes out of higher education and gets into employment, probably you can see the effects of it much more faster. So in that, all these things, I guess, makes higher education a much more important area of investment, I guess. And I agree with that. There is a lot of investment in this sector, which needs to get propagated, because we are a very young country, and most the unemployment rates are very high. In a state like Bihar, for example, there are a lot of students in the range of 20 to 30 years who are not in education, not in employment, and not in training. And all those productive years are gone by. And mind you, all of them are they have done their secondary education, but their higher education choices or the quality of higher education is not so good, so that it translates into impact. So I think there's a lot of scope to work in this area.
So, okay, so one thing is, I think that the point is that we generally, as a nation and society, we are obsessed with education, and we need to make sure that together investment in education continues. So it's not to say we need to spend less in primary or secondary. What we are basically saying is that there is a good progress happening there. I think this is again well known, the gross enrollment ratios in secondary education and senior secondary have really improved over the last 10 years.
Right.
But I believe the higher education is still lagging behind, right? So what are those numbers like? I mean, how big is this gap?
So in India, these 1 to 10 dropout is 78%, and most of them do not even complete 12th. And the higher education,
the enrollment or the dropout?
1 to 10th में 78% dropout.
Enroll करते हैं.
Oh, sorry, enroll करते हैं.
Yeah.
And then sorry. And 67%, I guess, enrolled in 12th standard, and there is a much higher drop, because only 27% of the students are there in higher education. So a lot of people.
The thing is that close to 67% are now reaching till 12th class, or at least enrolling for 12th class.
Enrolling class, yeah.
But from 67%, it goes down to 27%.
27%
for higher education.
Yeah.
And that's quite serious, because today we know that the job market is going through a major revolution. And again, I'm being a technologist myself.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of the jobs that we have today, they are going to be, they will just disappear. So while a lot of people are being prepared for livelihoods, I think there is no replacement to making sure that as CSRs, as well-meaning society, we need to improve the rates of higher education enrollment. Because I think another point that's coming in, probably this is me speaking on this one, something that I also feel very strongly, and we've exchanged notes on that many times, Manish, is that do we want to be a nation of job seekers, or do we want to be a nation of job creators? And if we want to be job creators, then higher education is not only about going to college and studying there. It is about creating friendships It is about creating networks. It is about gaining exposure. It's about broadening your mind to see many, many more things that are possible that you can do with your life, which maybe a livelihood course may not accomplish as effectively. And hence it becomes very important for us to look at higher education as a way to create more job creators, the more innovators of tomorrow. And hence higher education, that's why you're saying, has a bigger impact. And the clear numbers there for CSR to worry about is the 27% drop that happens at higher education enrollment. So we as a society have to improve those enrollment rates. And they're growing. Thankfully, I believe they moved from 24 to 27% in quick time. That's also a function of all the good work that's happened behind primary and secondary education so far. But now this is the time when we need to change gears, because this 27% of higher education enrollment is sitting with an 8% unemployment rate also that we need to contend with. And I think a lot of good work is already happening, right? The government has got some initiatives, society is coming behind it, and CSR can also play a big role. So let's now move from not just the 27%, but what makes a scholarship effective? Because at the end of the day, we're still saying scholarships are broken. And we are saying that a good scholarship should be measurable. You talked about it a few times. So what kind of measurement can happen to say that, the scholarship is working? You talked about the time gap to measure success is smaller in a higher education. So CSRs and other can actually talk about their successes even faster. But what kind of measurements can corporates actually look forward to if they were to create a scholarship for CSR? Scholarship for higher education.
What kind of measurements?
Manish, can you hear us? I think Manish's screen is frozen. We've got a question in the chat. Given that collection and accurate processing of aspirants' data is an essential part of scholarship process, whether it is through technological or through platforms, how do you see Digital Personal Data Protection Act affecting the same and overall scholarship facilitation ecosystem? Okay, I think Manish is rejoining. Adarsh, you want to talk a bit more about your question? I can take it, and then once Manish is back, we can, we can pose it to him.
Yeah, hi, Pankaj. Thank you for the insightful talk that you guys are having. The question was just regarding that since we are the first thing we all know that given that so many organizations collect the same data, so if I am having a scholarship, I'll collect the data, and then if you are having a scholarship, you'll again collect the same data of this similar students, similar. So every person is reinventing the wheel. So first, there is no actual real way to, but that's a very foundational problem in the whole ecosystem. And whether it's about scholarship or whether it's about all the social impact interventions that we really put out in the society. But this is something which has actually been enforced by the government, that is Personal Data Protection Act, which actually lays out rules that how you have to take the consent of the students, and which I think is in place, but now it is going to be more stringent and it's going to be more compliance based. So my question was that how do we see this changing the whole, because right as of now it was very loosely bounded, if I may use the term, and but it's now it has to be compliance based. And a lot of times I believe that in social ecosystem, compliance is also acts as an inhibitor. So would it be an inhibitor for getting to the what you were talking about, to the right person? Because then at the end of the day, people will just want to go with the one who can provide us the compliance. Okay, this student is there, he has given consent, his profile is there, I'm good to go, rather than going on the ground, finding a person who is right for the scholarship, then getting that consent, obtaining the consent, and then maybe going forward with everything that revolves around.
Great. Thanks, Adarsh. It's a great question and very topical. So I think, yes, like the good thing about India is right now the infrastructure and the focus on technology is improving. We are in the right direction, at least we are on the right trend line. And to your question on you talked about technology for almost two things, right? One was the wasted effort, the duplicity of effort, and the role that technology can play in bringing that down. I think we covered that in a previous question as well. And you're absolutely right that if, let's say, someone like You Dreamers Foundation, which is already reaching out to close to 500 non-profits and a massive ground footprint already, if they were to sort of get one student onboarded and verified once, and there is a technology layer on top, which is sort of adding to that trust that, okay, a trusted party has done this verification, then definitely the cost as well as the time for student selection and verification comes down for the entire ecosystem. So I think the cost and the time effort on the first one, that that first part of your question is I think a clear answer. Technology is answering that. And within that, the second part that you had was because you're now going through a network which is on the ground and you're not necessarily depending on social media and people who are on Facebook and Instagram maybe to source the students, and these not-for-profits actually have history of the students. You can actually look at getting better students, and these students can be introduced to technology through that not-for-profit or through the other people working in the system. So and we've actually tested that, so we've got a running model on that. Manish is back. Manish, I'm just taking the question on the chat box. You can also add your thoughts to it.
Right.
Adarsh has asked a question. So, we are looking at, we have actually run a scholarship over the last 1 year, Adarsh, working with students actually from aspirational districts of India, coming from families that don't even earn 40,000-50,000 rupees in some cases, but their kids have made it into an IIT Madras or an IIT Bombay. And we worked with these kids and we looked at the sourcing and the cost of sourcing, the time of sourcing and the verification. And we can say that technology can play a very important role, and it is playing an important role in doing that. So that's one part. Second comes to data protection, which is the other part. So the digital personal data protection, right? I think the first and foremost thing is who is able to get access to somebody else's private information. That definitely technology can play a big role. The way scholarships are run today on Google Sheets, that's a big risk. Coming onto platforms that are secured by, let's say, protocols, cloud security systems, they make a lot of difference. Second thing is what kind of information is visible to the users itself. The good thing is that if you have one party doing the student verification, you don't after that need to share all the private information of the student to everybody else in the value chain, right? And like the technology that we are operating is, we are giving necessity-based access to private information of students. It is perfectly possible for a scholarship creator to be supporting a scholarship recipient without even having the need to have their mobile number, emails, but still have complete trust in the whole process. And then the second part, so this is access-based controls within the technology system to make data privacy front and center of the solution. The second part that you're talking about, which is a major leap from the Google Sheets systems that is happening today. Google Sheets is a high-risk system, and definitely I think this law is important. We do need to look at that. The second part that you talked about was minors and children coming into applying for a scholarship. So technology needs to have parental consent, and there have to be mechanisms within the technology and the application process itself to make sure that the child's parent is involved in some way or the other. So I can't talk about other systems, but in practice, our technology is already built to ensure that there is parental consent, there is parental information. So we have the parents' ID information, we get information about their financial standing. Manish talked about how the ground network is helping create financial documents for the villager or the farmer who never even had that document. So the fact that it's happening with a not-for-profit, helping us put that information together, that is also being ensured. So we are making sure that it's not the minor who is unknowingly volunteering his or her information, there are very strong controls on the fact that within the system itself, that there is a parental consent that is taken before sharing information. So I hope I answered most of your aspects there. Others, do you have any follow-on question on that? Otherwise, I'll ask Manish to chip in. Adarsh, can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So Manish, to Adarsh's question on data protection, we talked about the fact that information is on a need-to-know basis. It can be masked in the system itself. There is parental consent in the case of minors, and you're obviously working on the ground as well. So there is a bit of guidance to the students before they come onto the platform as well. So we talked about that. I'm also mindful of the time, so we have another 10 minutes. Groups, if there are any other questions, please keep sending them over into the chat box. Manish, I have a question for you, and that is about we talked the last part about what makes scholarships broken is also today how involved are scholarship programs in the actual success of the student. I know we give money, but is money all that is required for a person to become the job creator or the innovator of tomorrow?
No.
What role can scholarships play there?
Yeah. So I think we have to do a lot in shaping their aspirations beyond giving only the financial assistance, because most of these students come from the rural background who get the scholarship support. Most of them come from needy backgrounds, and most of them do not have the aspirations to, let's say, not the aspiration part of it, just the exposure part of it, where they should. One major point to succeed is that they do not have enough networks and support system to help them grow in their journey. So, like we are doing on our platform, we are creating a community of these students and helping them through career counseling, group counseling and various other exposure programs, and that helps them, these students, to, let's say, put in much more efforts. Like I guess two of our scholars are doing projects on their own of starting something new.
Ventures. They started their
ventures,
own ventures.
Yeah, the ventures they have started. So out of 9 students we were working with, we are giving scholarships to these students, and out of 3, 2 students have started their own ventures. And I guess that support goes a long way in helping them become job creators.
Yeah, and you were also talking about measurement. So sorry, I must add here that on our platform, when we give support to students in a group session or a career counseling session, we are actually getting student satisfaction ratings on every session. And I think credits to You Dreamers Foundation that the programs that are hosted by You Dreamers Foundation on our platform, they are consistently getting scholar satisfaction ratings in excess of 4.7 out of 5. There are a host of efforts that are being undertaken that after a student is funded, they are also receiving emotional well-being check-ins, which is through people who are coaches. There is career guidance, and as you mentioned, so we are signing up with companies. Impact is, for the benefit of the audience, is welcoming companies to come and sign up with us to help us evaluate scholars, to help us offer career guidance to scholars. So let's say if there's a scholar who's interested to know more about banking, or something about blockchain, or something about the manufacturing sector, or something about the medical sector, we are inviting companies to come in and have a talk and a session, either in a group session format or as an individual career guidance call. And this is all done remotely. It doesn't take a lot of time for the company. And the best part is we can come back with volunteering hours that can be reported digitally back to the company on this program. So suddenly you're not only just helping one student, but you're also able to get your employees engaged and making a
Engaged,
personal
yes,
connect in the process, because now your employees are part of the process of evaluating a student. Manish mentioned that there are videos of the students when they apply for a scholarship. You can actually help evaluate that student based on the video and the other information. It's a great process. Anyone on the call who is interested to know more, please write to us at Impactus. We'll be happy to tell you more about the career guidance community that Manish was talking about, and everything around it. So Manish, you've been a great partner. You sort of have, you and Saurabh and the rest of the YDF team have sort of really brought in a lot of perspective for us also as we built this technology around a lot of things that we've learned from you. Talk to us about Small Towns, Big Dreams. How is that going? How has that relationship with Impactus been for you? And what can that program do for corporates and CSRs as well?
Right. So we, in partnership with Impactus, of course, we started this program called Small Town Big Dreams, and we had one goal. Let's say if we have to improve our impact per dollar invested in scholarships, we thought that sourcing students from tier 2, tier 3 cities and who are getting admits into IITs and NITs, those students would be much more those students would do much more in contributing back to the society. So we thought of starting this scholarship on the platform. These students, we try to source these student applications from Super 30 Jawan Navodaya Vidyalayas and provide them scholarships, and we are providing them full scholarships up to 5 lakhs per year, and stipend support and the laptop support, so that they can make most out of their higher education journey. Secondly, we have well-being check-in call with them every month, so that we understand how they are doing in their journey. Third thing is there are various sessions that are happening with these students on AI and on a lot of various things, which help these students to get exposed to a lot of opportunities outside. We help them get internships also, and that is the program we are actually running on the platform, for which we are soliciting scholarship support. If you can pitch in and sponsor as students, you can reach out to us, and we are happy to onboard you on that. You may contribute in terms of selecting those students, volunteering also, and further connecting them to different opportunities. So that is the thing open. And if you want to, let's say, start new scholarship schemes, we can help you design new scholarship schemes. There are a lot of things that lot of courses or lot of design variations that can happen on scholarships, and whatever things you are most interested in, we can start on that.
Great. So I think Manish, yes, I'll just add one more thing. So you got a scholarship running on the Impactus platform called Small Towns Big Dreams. It is again aimed at building the innovators and job creators of tomorrow. So the focus is completely on students who are coming from rural low-income families. I believe all of these students are having family incomes of in the range of 2.5 lakh rupees or less. They are all, I know of students whose family income was just 50,000 rupees, and they made it into the IITs from this selection. They're all thoroughly verified from partners like JNV, ONGC Super 30, Tapas, etc. And we sourced close to, we have maybe close to 40 fully verified students where we are looking to raise funds to support their scholarships. And the way that corporates and CSRs can help in creating these are all programs. You have the tax benefits and everything as well for the CSR. That is also covered. So companies, if you are interested to create a scholarship on our platform, we can get this scholarship up and running for you in a matter of days. this scholarship. We have students who have been identified through a selection process. They're all brilliant students. They're sitting in either an IIT or an NIT. They all come from low income families. And you can get your own website page. You can have your own name for the scholarship, and you can run that as a separate scholarship completely. And we can help you connect and find the right students that meet your interests and your goals of your scholarship from this pool, and even others, as Manish was saying, if you want to source other kids as well, they've got a big network, they can do that. The other way is that you could consider also contributing to the Small Towns Big Dream Scholarship directly. In that case, you don't need to create a scholarship. You can just help us fund more students. And those interested, you are most welcome to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to tell you more about the Small Towns Big Dream Scholarship. The new year has started for the next batch of IIT has started. Students are in college. Most of them have taken personal loans. Friends and families have scuttled together to arrange some money and pay for their first term. Now reality is settling in. Some of them have very bad laptops. They can't really study that well on their laptops. Now they're starting to worry about their next term fees. And it is a great time for CSRs to actually consider supporting their education. So Manish, again, great stuff. Great, thank you for actually sharing your thoughts and your insights and perspectives. That was really, I thoroughly enjoyed speaking. It was with you. Always a pleasure. And I hope the audience enjoyed this too. Thank you for your interest and for your participation as well. We are available, both Manish and I are available. And for any questions, please do get in touch with us. We are on the same journey as you are to make sure that more people can do more with their lives. And hopefully we play some role in their future happiness. So with that, thanks again, Manish. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah,
right.
Thank you. Same here.
Great. And we shall stop the session for today. Thank you, everyone.